Hi, Fraser.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I've
Good.
heard that this is where the Suds are at.
Oh, yeah. We are cleaning out our minds from the duds that were on your channel.
Yes,
You like that? You
exactly.
like that?
Very
That was
nice.
good. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So if you don't know what we're talking about, we do our tops, like our favorite reads and our least favorite reads. And Fraser and I get together and we talk about them. And this month, the best reads, the suds, are on my channel and the duds are on his channel.
Yes.
So go over there and watch that because it was fun to talk about. We had some
Mhm.
we had some duds, some real duds. Although one of mine was dud-ish, like dud. Anyways, I'm not gonna go on about that. I'm gonna let you start. So tell me about your first sud.
Okay. And we are not following the same.
Oh
uh,
yeah, usually we talk about a classic, a favorite, the book we thought about the most, and then our favorite. But this month we're just going off the cuff, so we're just favorites for a reason,
yes.
whatever reason we choose.
Yes. So
Yeah.
my first favorite is very esoteric, I guess, for the reason, and it's going to be Silence of the Lambs
Oh yeah.
by
Oh,
Harrison
Thomas
something.
Harris.
Yes. Yeah. Good old Harrison.
I didn't read it.
Yeah, I know. I actually have it right there. I should probably have grabbed it, but whatever.
Okay,
I like putting the picture there anyway. This
I
is
don't.
a favorite because I really like the movie, and forever people have been like, the book isn't as good because what could live up to the depiction of Hannibal by Anthony Hopkins and Clarice Jodie Foster, yada yada yada. However, this was just entirely exceptional writing, in my opinion. Like, I think being in the head of Clarice is just way better because you're able to get so much more information and context around the actual Silence of the Lambs than her just verbalizing
Oh,
it when she's doing the quid
oh,
pro quo with Hannibal through the bars. And he's basically saying, I'll give you information as long as you tell me about yourself. She's a young FBI agent, more or less out of the academy. She's got a lot of accolades, but she still has to prove herself. And this guy basically plucks her from the ranks because she's got the attributes that he thinks that he needs in order to elicit a response from Hannibal, because they're trying to track down this killer, Buffalo Bill, who has been eluding them for ages. And so she's sort of like a honeypot, except that she's really smart and she's really Southern. She's really
oh,
exceptional
cool.
in a lot of ways. And her intelligence shines through much more in the book, of course, than the movie, because they're just not able to encapsulate that stuff. There is some aspects that transfer over to the film. For instance, when Jack allows a police officer to be kind of sexist in the movie, she also calls him out on it after.
Mm.
But in the book, there's just more instances of that occurring. And it's also really excellent because the representation for trans people in the movie is very muddied. Like, it's kind of a film that people point to sort of make fun of trans people, or point to this notion in the popular consciousness that transness can have a mental problem with it that is
Mm-hmm.
perpetuated by racist and bad people, transphobic
Right,
people. Whereas the
right.
book is like explicit and reiterative on the point that Buffalo Bill is not a trans person, and he's sort of aping that as a different thing that is wrong with him. And it actually goes into great detail, saying even like really specific stats about how trans people are like one of the most nonviolent groups and more at risk than other people for being harmed, and all this other stuff in a very like organic and good way, I think. And again, reiterative, like across the path of them trying to find Buffalo Bill. So it
Interesting.
seems like really well researched. The characters are phenomenal. It's just exactly what you like about the movie, augmented in like absolutely every way, I think. Like, it just made me appreciate the movie more, but also Yeah, it bugged me that people were like, it doesn't live up to the movie, because I've been putting it off for ages, and those people are wrong.
Sounds like it really surprised you. It was like your biggest surprise almost.
Yeah, I
Um,
adored it. Yeah.
yeah, the one movie my mom said to never watch is Silence of the Lambs, and I have listened to her on that.
It is intense. Yeah.
Yeah, the closest I got was What Happened to Eddie Gain, which is a graphic novel, sort of biography about Eddie Gain, who inspired Buffalo Bill. But that's the closest I really got to even getting near the Red Dragon series or Silence of the Lambs or anything like that.
I'd say even the character who is kidnapped in the movie, and held by Buffalo Bill, that they're trying to desperately find, is also characterized in a more feminist and more
Oh,
autonomy kind of light as well. Like, because you can
interesting.
see the wheels turning in her head, whereas in the movie she's more depicted as like a I don't know, like a mommy's girl who doesn't really have any thought out thoughts, or stuff like that, and it's just
Yeah.
far more nuanced in that. So I was just, yeah, a pleasant surprise.
Yeah. So, well, I'm gonna go with my biggest surprise, I suppose. And let me make sure I say it right because yeah. So it was Convenience Store Woman by
Mhm.
Sayaka Maruta, right? And it was translated by Jenny Tapley Takamori. Yeah. So I had heard about Convenience Store Woman all over BookTube, and everybody was like, "It's really good. It's really good. It's about like a neurodivergent woman who is in love with a convenience store, essentially, like." And it ended up being kind of like that, but so much more because I would say that it's about Kiko, who finds a lot of comfort and stability in her job as a part time convenience store worker that she's been working at for years. And there are external factors like her sister, a group of friends, other people that are saying that her life choices are not appropriate or forward thinking enough. And through that, she makes some changes. And those changes lead her down a path, down like a very interesting path. And that ends up being like the thrust of the book. And I just thought it said a lot about society. I was just surprised because I found the main character very endearing and very easy to connect to. I really liked her outlook on the world. I love that she was very like plain spoken. There wasn't any like the whole thing about her was that she sort of just says what's on her mind and very straightforward. Um, but I thought it said a lot about um, finding comfort in things because we find comfort in them, like as an individual, and not as. And it doesn't matter if society sort of says that that's okay or not. So it's like even though I do this thing, this like a routine that sort of maybe everyone else thinks is strange, but I really find it comforting. It really shouldn't matter, and I really liked that. And just I was really invested in the character. It was just all around like a really really pleasant surprise, and I just desperately enjoyed it so much. So, and
Yeah.
I know you read it and really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, I loved it. I read it when it first dropped, so I didn't know what to expect, and I thought in the beginning, I'm like, please don't make this like a Dexter type thing where it's like a neurodivergent woman who's gonna like go off the rails and kill people or whatever. But instead, it's just, yeah, about her finding a like much more wholesome path about her individuality and how society is more um not serving the individual and more
Hmm.
like the wild, or the more, I want to say crazy, but crazy is not the right word, like it's just, yeah, like it inverts the expectations that you have
Yeah,
for her onto the society, I think.
right. And the whole thing was even like funnier than I thought it was going to be. Like there was parts that were just really funny. And I just like the whole thing was really, really charming all the way up until the last page. Like it was just great. It was great.
Hmm.
Really good. So yeah. All right. So what's your next one? What's your...
My next one is a favorite because I have found a literary fantasy intersection again. Previously, I've
Oh,
basically only had Gormenghast and R. Scott Baker's The Second Apocalypse, like 7 books. Those are kind of the only ones that I would consider super literary. I guess Tolkien kind of. But this is China Meowville's Perdido Strait Station, and it's just so wild. Like it's a world where it's so heavily invested in the world building, and he's clearly thought through so many things, because it's definitely like, I think there's two sci-fi type of authors where they're like, let me tell you about the world that I've built, and then the people that do like sort of soft world building, that's kind of like J.K. Rowling, where they're like, I'll tell you stuff when you need to know and you can kind of infer the rest. This is like, I've built everything, I know exactly how everything works, I can tell you like every intricacy, there's like anecdotes about certain things, and so you kind of have to be in the mood for that type of novel, because it is quite large. It's like almost 800 pages, and I think a lot of it is because he is explaining everything about the world, but the world is so different than everything that we know that he kind of needs to and has to, and that's the sort of magic of it. It is very like grotesque Tim Burton-y kind of way. It is a as I understand it anyway, a city that is within the chest cavity of a dead god, like in the ribs of it.
Oh,
And so there is like a mixture of humans and insect type people, and then
right.
humans are more or less on this weird trajectory where it's very, again, Tim Burton-esque, where they're trying to combine their DNA with insect stuff and create like hybrid stuff, like people that can fly. There's a lot of different types of humanoid slash insect things, but a lot of them seem to be kind of faux humans, like people who have tried to go in this scientific direction that has massively altered the city. And it's also sort of described as a sort of hellscape thing, like a kind of almost purgatory-ish city where like souls have come. And so it's just, yeah, it's like almost beyond description. Like it's a book where you like literally just have to tell people to read it, because
Yeah.
it's so hard to describe everything, because there's no other points that you can gravitate towards
Oh,
and be like, it's kind of like this and this and this. It's just, it's its own thing. I
yeah.
haven't seen anything like it before.
Yeah. You
But
had me at bugs when you were like
yeah,
about bugs. I was like, oh, is it? Tell me
um,
about that.
and like the plot is fairly simple. It's about a scientist who is charged by like a very predominant ward, who's kind of shadowy. He won't reveal his presence to him, but he's got like a lot of backing, a lot of money, and he wants him to try to create a Garuda, I believe it's called, in which it's like a human with wings on the back, and
Oh,
that becomes a very predominant thing. Everybody has like their own character arc. He's in love with like an insect woman who is a artist who sculpts these like wild things out of her own like mucus and saliva, that like has this sort of weird shimmering qualities to it that is associated with like insect type stuff. So it like smells a certain way. The aesthetic purposes of the art is just so idiosyncratic to her and her species in particular. And so that the more predominant people who are insects like her are like entranced, mesmerized. It's like a whole completely new form of art, basically.
that's cool.
And that's how she's making her way, but it's also transgressive for them to be together. So it's sort of a shorthand for interracial
Hmm.
politics, and they're not like, they don't want to be seen together because they will be, you know,
Judged.
judged and sometimes like in danger. Like people will attack
Oh,
them for
okay.
being
Wow.
together and stuff. So it follows like a sort of semi-basic plot trajectory inserted in this world that is just, yeah, brimming with alternate fantasy stuff. He's been dubbed the new weird king.
Yeah, that's what
Of
I saw when I looked him up. So I thought that
Yeah,
was really cool because I didn't even know there was a new weird. So
yeah. It was more towards the end. It is very brutal, so I'll like content warnings for that stuff. Like there's rape, torture, death, lots of bad things happening, in which I think is why he sets up very early that it's like a hellscape and bad things happen here.
Oh, I see.
There's some definite like barbaric cruelty, and there's a center theme of like confronting what justice kind of means in a society like this. And the ending kind of mostly worked for me, but took away in its brutality of some of the characters, where I was just like, that's a lot, Melville. You need to chill.
Yeah. Interesting. That's really
Yeah.
cool though. I don't know. I was like, after you talked about it, I was like, that sounds great. That sounds fun. Yeah. Well, my next read is like the opposite of that.
Oh,
It's like comforting and sweet and charming and adorable, but not too sweet. And it's made me very excited for 2023 because it is Heartstopper by Alice
no.
Osman. Yeah, which is a they're graphic novels, and I read the installments 2, 3, and 4, and the 5th and last installment is coming out in February of 2023, which I'm so excited about. I read these on my iPad for my library, but I would love a physical copy. And like everything worked. It's about a queer couple navigating high school and their relationship, being queer together. One of them is out, one of them is not. And so it felt very real in that like the dialogue in which friends are just bantering with each other, both like Nick and Charlie together, which is the couple, but also like with their friends. It all just seemed very real. Their anxieties felt really real, but not in a way that was there to make you feel angsty or unsettled. It was done in a very loving way. And I think Osman really, really loved like being in this world, being in the world that was created by by them. I heard that Alice Osman's a they them pronoun, so
okay.
by them. And so yeah, you could just tell. And because of that, the world was just warm and inviting, and I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave it. So,
Yeah.
but I had to because it
The
ended.
fourth one has by and far and away the best depiction of someone grappling with an eating disorder too that I've consumed, especially for a young adult, especially in a graphic novel. Yeah, it was just, the fourth one was like, yeah, perfection for me.
Yeah, and it did a really good job, especially talking about the underlying issues of the eating disorder versus like the disorder itself, which I thought was really good. Yeah, it was just like the whole thing was really great, and especially like it was just so sweet, but not so sweet in a way that felt unrealistic. So I really
Yeah.
liked that. And it just was great. It was great because I read a lot of stuff this month and there was some stuff that I was like, ah, it's so bad, or just like so off kilter, like, murder mysteries and stuff. And I'm just like, I need something to like so I can fall asleep at night. And this was like the thing that helped me fall asleep at night. I was like, Nick and Charlie are the best.
The world is okay.
The world is fine now. But yeah. All right. So tell me the tippy top. What's at the top of the Fraser fortress?
This is like a all-time favorite. If there is justice in the world, it will be a modern classic.
Okay.
Fake Accounts by Lauren Euler. I love it so much. And I know it's very polarizing. Well, maybe even not even polarizing. I think most people dislike it. But I think in part reading it on my physical copy as well as on audio really helped get plugged into the voice of the story, because it's very critical of the main character, and that's the point of it. And I think other people get very exasperated with her, and they're just like like, I want to not be in this person's head anymore because she's exasperating.
What is the premise of the novel? I don't even really know.
Yeah, so it's about a young 20-something, I think, like maybe 25, 26 at the top end. She is very plugged into media. She's always on Twitter, and it's like running her life, and she doesn't even kind of acknowledge it. But she's also sort of like intelligent and well educated so that she can talk very persuasively and interestingly about that subject, even though she's evading her own participation in that space as well. Like, she's completely in the grind of Twitter and trying to get likes and trying to be witty and smart and
Oh, I
sexy and all these
see.
things. And
Sure.
she's critical of other people doing that, but she's like, thinks of herself in a liminal space that isn't like that. And she's
Hmm.
got this boyfriend that she's pretty into, but not really. And she wants to, she ends up wanting to break up with him because she finds out that, well, she always thought that he was cheating on her because he's like very secretive with his phone and very evasive and all this stuff. And eventually he's in the shower or something and she's able to get the phone. And it turns out he's got fake accounts and he's the leader of this website in which he's a conspiracy theorist. And
Mm.
at the eve of her culmination, her galvanization of wanting to break up with him, he ostensibly dies. He disappears. It's hard to find out and confirm all of these different things because his presence exists mostly online.
Oh.
And she has a faux sort of come to Jesus moment in which she wants to change her life. She moves to Berlin in order to just reinvent herself, basically, except it's like a very meta like satirical sense of her doing this. Like, it's a classic tale in which, she's trying to go through and process these things and she's having the same feelings that everybody has with grief and loss, where she's like trying to find somebody else immediately. And the whole point of the book and this reinvention is both that she's like moving through exceptionally privileged areas, even as she's lamenting all of these things that have happened to her. She has friends that are like, like looking up to her, but also critical of her. And the entire, like, it's satirical, but also happening online now with everybody, so it's hard to describe in that way, but it's like also unconventional in its formatting. It's basically attempting to transgress everything about it, like on a character level, at the formatting level, the structural level. It's got it's just making fun of absolutely everybody, but especially the main character, who's this privileged Brooklynite who sees herself as better than people who are living in the exact same situation because they're doing a performative allyship with like people of color and
Mm.
trying to gain a social currency by like tapping into that sort of woman on Twitter.
Yeah.
And she's
Yeah.
exactly that.
Okay. Even though she's judging that.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
just hilarious all of the time. And like, it's at the end, like it would be a mountain of possibilities that she could have come to, but basically probably learns nothing, comes to nothing, like there's no, it's all very like vapid and investigative of the superficiality of the post-internet generation for like that type of young millennial, or maybe even like the next generation as well. And at the same time, strangely, I think at least humanizes her a lot because she encapsulates so much about how desperately people want social currency and to acknowledge that the online internet world is as real as the reality. And if
Hmm.
you're participating in that, it still says something about your actual personality, even though people want to, hold those two, anonymous me and the real me in like different instances and
But
not
really,
be
it's yeah.
criticized.
There is no difference. Like you're the
Yeah.
same. Yeah. 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 Interesting. Huh.
Yeah. I thought it was just incredible. Like it does exactly what it set out to do. I could see some people who are specifically like that on Twitter hating this book because it is criticizing them by proxy.
Yeah.
And I could see people of color reading it and just being so exasperated with her because they have to deal with people like that all of the time and they just nope out. But at the same time, that is the point. Like her not being able to meaningfully improve her life or even understand her life at a meta perspective, even though she becomes meta in the actual book, because in the book in Berlin, she is ostensibly writing the book that we are reading as well.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So it's just, phenomenal. I love it so much.
Well, I have those same feelings, but not for that book.
Yeah, yet.
Okay, well, we'll see. But do you want to guess my favorite book? Oh, you were very excited about this book at one point in your reading life.
I don't know. I have a deer in the headlights moment again.
Okay,
I can't think of anything.
It's The Trees.
Oh, excellent.
By Percival Everett. This is my favorite book of the month. The way I've shorthanded describing this book is it reads kind of like Twin Peaks, the television show Twin Peaks. And I know this might be a vague reference for other people, but I'll explain it. So it reads a bit like Twin Peaks, but make it Southern, make it racist. Anyways, so basically what happens is that there is a murder that goes on in Mississippi, and the MBI, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, comes down to investigate what's going on with this murder because it's very unusual. And the people that are murdered are white racists, and it makes it very clear that they're very racist. And the MBIers are like two Black cops. And so they're like in Mississippi and they're investigating it. And it's like the irony is kind of like not lost on them that they're investigating murders of people who hold very discriminatory beliefs against them. And it's very self-aware in that way. But what I loved about it was that Percival Everett is like tackling really difficult topics of racism and the way that we treat one another, and also has really fantastic, like just the sharpest banter. Like the banter in this is so amazing. Like it's so good because you would be reading a hard part and you're reading about these like actual racist people, and what's coming out of their mouth is vile and disgusting, and then immediately you turn around and be like, joke, and I'm like, oh, which you really needed. And so it made it like really enjoyable on that level. But then on top of that, it's just like so satisfying. Even up to the last page, I was just like, oh my gosh. There's just like everything about this book was just amazing. And it was just so good. I like, it's hard to, it's just like, just read it. Just like, if any of this sounds good to anybody watching, just read it because it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, that I wouldn't be surprised, and it should transition into like a modern classic thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, the very own town that I live in was called out by name, which in this book is not a good thing. And so that was really kind of interesting. And so it created, like, for me, almost like a meta experience of thinking about my town and thinking about it in the context of this book. And but yeah, Percival Everett, I mean, like on a bunch of levels, it was great, but I was just shocked at how like funny it was, because I don't usually find a lot of things very funny. And it was like the banter was so, it was sharp. So it was great.
Yeah,
that's it.
I love that aspect of it too. I'm glad that it ended up working for you, because I was like, I don't know, the ending I feel like could go either way for some readers, but for me, and it sounds like for you too, it went in a very good way. Yeah.
Well, I was like, you kind of get to a point in the book where you're like, I've enjoyed the journey enough that even if it ends in a way that I don't love, like the journey getting there was so worth it. And I definitely got there, but even like near the end, I was like, this is amazing. Like I was just like cheering. It was so good. It was just really, really good and really, really fascinating. So yeah, this holds like a special place in my heart now. It's weird to say, but yeah, I really loved it. Really loved it. So yeah, well, that's it. Those were them's be our tops and flops.
That's the Suds.
Oh, the Suds and Duds. Oh, the Duds are on your channel though. I'm like forgetting what we did. But yeah, anyhow, we'll go over to Fraser's channel and watch the Duds because they are great. They're great.
Yes.
But yeah, anyhow, thanks for being on my channel.
Thanks for having me as always.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.